This video forms part of a series introducing the new SALSA standard issues for 2026. The focus of this video is the SALSA food and drink standard for businesses who are handling and producing open food and drinks. This moves to issue 7. We'll explain why the standard has changed, the key changes, and whether requirements have been amended, and we'll finish on how you can prepare. For anyone who doesn't know SALSA, a very quick introduction. SALSA stands for Safe and Local Supplier Approval. We're the trusted food safety certification scheme designed specifically for small and growing food and drink businesses across the UK and Ireland. Our approach is built on safe food first and affordability. We're supportive, provide constructive, practical, and most importantly, relevant advice. In surveys, 90% of our members tell us SALSA certification is essential to their business. The new issues were published and available to download from the SALSA website on the 1st of June 2026, and all audits will be conducted against the new issues from the 1st of September 2026. The standards have been developed in collaboration with our SALSA Technical Advisory Committee, with members from across the food and drink industry, and with Cornwall County Council as our primary authority for assured advice. Standard changes are required as the food and drink industry doesn't stand still, and neither do the regulations and guidance that underpin it. SALSA needs to stay aligned with current best practice and regulatory expectations. And in addition, retailers, wholesalers and food service companies that recognise SALSA certification expect the standards they rely on to be current and rigorous. These updates ensure SALSA certification continues to meet those expectations. And thirdly, we're strengthening the focus on 3 specific areas: food fraud resilience, management of change, and product identification and traceability. These changes support the standards evolution. If you're already running a good food business with solid systems, much of this will feel familiar. The updated standards support and strengthen what you're already doing, and they're not designed to catch anyone out. If you are a SALSA member, please use the interpretation guide as your main reference document. It's been greatly enhanced and carefully written to offer best practice guidance to demonstrate compliance with the requirements. The glossary gives further guidance on the technical phrases used throughout the standards and the interpretation guide, and has some useful links to further industry guidance to support understanding. The tools and tips are being rewritten behind the scenes and will be published across the summer of 2026, with a focus on the new clauses. Before we dive into the changes, it's important to say your documentation numbering does not need to mirror the SALSA standard. You need to know where everything is, you need to be able to locate it easily, and that's fine from our perspective. We recognise that many of you are moving towards digital record keeping and traceability systems, so the key principle here is your systems and records are readily accessible. You can check this as part of your in-house self-assessment process. It's really worth thinking ahead about how you can present your records and procedures during an audit, so in a way that allows it to run smoothly and efficiently. Food safety culture was introduced in the last issues and remains the cornerstone of these issues. These are the 6 foundations for food safety culture. In practice, it starts at the top. Leadership with a clear strategy and plan to ensure safe food is produced consistently, not just on a good day, but on every day. It can't stay at the top, and every person in the business needs to understand why food safety matters and feel genuinely committed to it, from the production floor to the offices. That means clear roles and responsibilities. Everyone knows what their part is and how it fits into the wider picture. Then there's the system itself. Your controls need to be verified. Your documentation needs to be current. Nothing should be assumed. Food safety doesn't stand still. The standards expect you to keep improving, staying up to date with changes in science, technology, and best practice. And finally, none of this works without the right resources, the right facilities, the right equipment, and the right support. So safe, hygienic food handling is the norm and not the exception. This is what food safety culture looks like when it's working well, and the changes in the new issues are designed to help you get there. The 2026 issues have been built around 3 pillars of change. For the food and drink production standard, these are firstly, food fraud resilience, secondly, management of change, and thirdly, product identification and traceability. So we'll look at what each of these mean in practice. Food fraud resilience. The focus of the change is improving the understanding of SALSA members to the threat of food fraud. You need to understand the risks of food fraud, adulteration and substitution for the raw materials and the products you buy. This is a desktop exercise, already required as part of the SALSA standard. The new issue is increasing the focus on applying appropriate controls and keeping up to date with emerging risks. We're looking for you to have broader knowledge of the potential risks to your raw materials and the industry you're working in. It's not expecting you to do a lot of expensive lab testing and analysis, but you should be completing a documented annual review, or even more frequently if that's needed. Management of change is a new requirement and intended to be supportive. Making changes is a risky time for a business, with an increase in the potential for errors. So think and check before introducing any changes. This may be entirely new products, processes, recipe packaging and machinery, or amendments to the existing ways of working. So it's an opportunity to look at everything and do it right first time. Traceability and product identification is a legal requirement. The new issues are really focusing on robust traceability throughout all stages of the production and processing, so materials are labelled and easily identified. Members need to have a system that works best for them, and this may be a mix of digital and paper. We're now taking a closer look at the changes, starting with the 6 new clauses. Please note that not all of these may be applicable to your business. We'll move on to those that have been updated or refocused, and then those clauses that have been split out to add clarity.
Okay, so looking now at the new clauses for food and drink. 136 is returnable and reusable containers. We're looking for documented controls for the use, receipt, storage, cleaning, with regards to allergen or recipe management, inspection for damage and removal from use, and the glossary gives us the definitions for reusable and returnable. Clause 158 gives us the covers breakable packaging controls. This clause covers packing into containers such as glass bottles, jars and ceramics. We're looking for a detailed procedure for the controls for goods intake, handling, packing and controls to manage any breakages. And clause 159 is product organoleptic testing. The essence of this clause is to control necessary product organoleptic and tasting taking place. Your procedure for organoleptic assessment should include the hygiene expectations for the tasters, any allergen safeguards, and records demonstrating that it is managed. To include where this is permitted to take place, for example, on a table to one side of production with QC records, or taken to a central kitchen or testing area. So 3.9, management of change. We've already discussed this in the 3 pillars of change. Essentially, it's about stopping and thinking before bringing in any new or making changes to existing products, recipes, packing or processing. Clause 5.3.3, factory tours and tastings. We appreciate many of you open your doors to members of the public to showcase the business and the foods and drinks that you produce. With this clause, we're referring to tours and tastings open to the public and not the visits you may have from customers, engineers or pest technicians. So for example, these are your tours or your artisan workshops. You need to control the food safety aspects of allowing members of the public into a food business. The clause is asking for a document that captures the controls in place for opening up your premises and the procedures to prevent contamination. So don't forget, while SALSA are focused on the food safety controls, you will need to consider the health and safety requirements. And clauses 447 and 448 are looking at good manufacturing standards. And this gives us a clear link to food safety culture. Businesses need a documented GMP contamination prevention framework that includes all aspects of foreign body control, hygiene standards, differing zones or segregation where that's relevant, housekeeping standards and handling practices. So to support, there needs to be a structured GMP audit and inspection schedule. For example, this could be weekly, monthly or quarterly, covering production and your ancillary areas. and you should encourage an open culture of recording and noting any actions required. So for example, the action could be giving refresher training to staff. So we will now look at the clauses that have been updated or refocused. So 1.1 is training. In general, it's a key part of the SALSA standard. And under clause 113, we're looking that the refresher plan exists and includes training against the latest procedures. So this could be allergen controls, CCP monitoring, hygiene standards, foreign body control, labelling checks and labelling controls. And then clause 132 for cleaning procedures. These need to be validated. You should have evidence that the chosen methods and materials for cleaning are effective and doing the right job. Clause 133 is cleaning chemicals. So ensuring the cleaning chemicals are food safe and carefully considered, that they're used correctly, so what the dosing is, whether that's hot water or cold water usage, the contact time, and if they require to be rinsed away. So we need to keep a controlled list of approved cleaning chemicals used on site, how to store them correctly, and what detailed labels and instructions they have. Ensure all are food industry safe and you're not using domestic supermarket products. So the domestic type products are fine for the offices, ancillary areas and the canteen, but not the factory. So hygiene and environmental swabbing, testing and frequency should also be based on the risk to the products you produce. So just to summarise here, we're looking to see that your cleaning methods are effective for your business and the products you produce, that you're using appropriate cleaning chemicals and using them safely. So looking now at allergen management. Businesses will need to know what allergens they're bringing on site and have a detailed risk assessment to base the cross-contamination controls on. You need to consider the risks of unintended allergens. So this includes the risk from not cleaning sufficiently, using the incorrect raw material in a recipe, or not managing spillages. There could also be product and equipment changeovers and segregation and rework controls. You need to manage the risk of the may contain assessment with the raw materials coming onto site and any further handling. It's generally best practice to have a separated documented allergen risk assessment rather than relying on the HACCP study. So staying on the theme of allergens, a procedure is needed to make sure the controls are in place for checking the details are correct for all aspects of labelling, to include marketing copy, any printed material and any websites. If you make any allergen claims, this can be tested using in-house rapid testing methods, but any claims must be backed up with a valid test in an accredited and approved laboratory using accredited methodologies. So calibration. The two calibration clauses have been retitled, just making the overall purpose clearer. So 154 is for external calibration, for any equipment linked to safety or legality testing. So for example, the weighing scales for retail traded goods or your temperature probes. Clause 155 is for your in-house verification systems, such as the in-house tests you might do monthly for temperature probes in hot and cold water against your master probe, or your weekly scale checks using your calibrated test weights. So looking at clauses 161 and 162 now. So 161 has been updated for approving suppliers. This is to ensure there is greater confidence in suppliers and the quality and the provenance of the goods purchased. So this now includes additional requirements if you're using the services of external subcontracted processors or packaging facilities. For clause 162, businesses need to have written specifications for all raw materials and for any subcontracted packing or processing. These can all be held digitally with maybe a summary in an Excel file with the date received and the date reviewed. Review your specs annually and just ensure they are up to date, they're all in place, and record when you did this review. And just to add here, clause 163 details the requirements for goods intake. So a procedure is needed for the checks required and to highlight what to look for, with particular attention here to detect if there's any adulteration, substitution, any different packaging, different branding, or different country of origin. And just a quick note here, it is acceptable to buy some of your raw materials from the supermarkets. Ensure your procedure matches your buying practices, so you are controlling exactly which products, in what packaging, and are you buying from which supermarket. And there are additional notes for this in the interpretation guide. Okay, so section 1.8 is now worded waste management and recycling, and this is to bring us in line with legislation updates and licence disposal. Section 1.9 now reads as pest management rather than pest control. So the methods of pest control used on site shall be trained out to the staff so that they understand the types of controls you have in place, such as your baits, pots, EFKs, moth pots, etc., and your GMP standards, such as your door controls and hygienic waste handling. And clause 193. Bait plans. This always sits in the top 10 of actions raised, so there is added clarity to the bait plan review process to make clear what's needed for this clause. So for clause 1.11.1, businesses need to put in place a record to demonstrate post-maintenance inspection and release back to production. In clause 1.12, there is added in focus on storage facilities and the controls in place for temperature management. Businesses need to demonstrate they are completing pre-load checks for cleanliness, odour, pests and temperature capabilities where that's relevant. And to note, if you need to carry out transit trials, then these need to be documented and completed and whether or not they were successful. And the interpretation guide gives you details for running these trials, ideally under worst case scenario conditions such as warm weather. So let's look at the updated interpretation guides for HACCP and section 2. So we have clauses 2.1 and 2.2. So the first clause now in section 2 is really now focusing on the HACCP scope and introduction to the products that you make. The SALSA standard views the product descriptions as an important way of explaining the foods and drinks that you produce, and that you have a true understanding of the food safety factors that make it safe by detailing your finished product values for things like AW, pH, alcohol content, salt content, cure levels, including your shelf life profiles, finished product packaging formats, for example. If you have products of differing food safety profiles, they should have a separate product description, and examples of that would be chilled ready-to-eat snacks with frozen ready-to-cook snacks, or regular beers versus your low and no alcohol brewing. So the HACCP team clauses are now focusing on knowledge and competence with understanding of the product food safety factors. Members need to demonstrate that they understand HACCP principles, and this is shown in a robust and accurate HACCP study with the evidence that they are producing safe food and drink consistently. So the requirement is to demonstrate understanding and competency of codex-based HACCP. For the team, this will be external training. There are a variety of training courses and styles available, and we would always recommend that you use a course delivered by a trainer. So this allows for questions and discussion. And just to note, for 2.15, the interpretation guide now asks for ready-to-eat and ready-to-heat products or products of a higher food safety risk, one member to have HACCP Level 3 training. Where a SALSA mentor or an external consultant is an active member of the team, this covers the level 3 requirement, but they must be an active part of the site's food safety management and engaged or on-site frequently enough to have a full understanding of the systems and HACCP requirements. And 2.16. Members should ensure they have HACCP trained production staff who are specifically trained against your controls, including any CCPs, to ensure we have consistent cover for any absences or holidays. So moving on now to 3.4.2. Challenge tests and tests of the communication. This clause for incident procedure challenge is always at the top 10 of the actions raised, so we have added more clarity. To test this effectively, businesses need to choose a realistic test scenario and then a record of the decision-making process to include traceability and all the evidence you capture, and then check. The challenge of testing the communication details and also the overall timings. We need to keep evidence of the actions and learnings, and that the test covers the business's real-time distribution to products out to customers or B2B, business to business. And review that you hold all the correct contact details, phone and email details, including any out-of-hours contacts. So looking at specifications. To keep in line with supplier approval requirements, specifications are required for all finished products, recipes, work in progress for further maturation, part processed products for further processing, non-pre-packed product, and the new requirement for subcontracted processing. Ensure you have clear technical alignment between specs, labels, process instructions, and supplier or contract manufacturing agreements. So for 3.7.1 labelling. As you know, control of labelling generation, artwork sign-off, and control of all labelling information, including any marketing content, is essential for legality and safety of your product, and the clause has been updated to reflect this. So businesses may need stronger governance over product claims and ingredient allergen statements, and this will also include information in any websites, any brochures, sales sheets, social media content, and customer specification sheets, so not just your on-pack copy. And just to note, auditors will look at your website, online sale platforms, and social media in preparation before the audit. So 3.8.1 shelf life. Your shelf life validation process will need to be defined. If your products are high risk or high care or of a high microbial risk, such as proteins, then external laboratory testing is required. Product types can be grouped together for shelf life review, rather than testing each recipe or product type individually. Ensure the correct and legal shelf life is applied, and adopting the correct legislative sampling programs. So you might need to consider validating shelf life and storage conditions for products once they've been opened. So this includes all business-to-business products, so establishing shelf life for products to the catering trade, restaurants, deli counters, for example. Auditors will be reviewing the annual review and that it's actually occurred and it is meaningful and is not rubber stamped. And linking here to clause 3.9 for any changes or any updates to recipes, processes, suppliers, and/or packaging changes. So looking now at clauses separated into two parts. There have been a number of clauses that have been split out to help with understanding. So training has been split out now for a clause for the procedure and then for the records. Allergens, as already discussed, has reworded for identification of all products purchased and then for the risk assessment for whether they have allergen contains or may contains. And HACCP, making clause 2.1 about the scope and product, and 2.15, 2.16, the competency of the team, and operational monitoring. So looking now at traceability wording. So the actual requirement has remained unchanged. It's just now 2 clauses, one for backwards and one for forwards traceability test. Site security and digital security plan have been separated. Businesses that use any form of digital recording, such as temperature logs, traceability, CCP monitoring, ERP or cloud drives, will need a strong cyber resilience plan. And the interpretation guide gives some great links for advice and a checklist to follow. Changing facilities then. The intent of the clauses hasn't changed. So to begin with, in section 1 is for personal requirements for members of staff and visitors, and then 444 is for the actual physical premises. And then looking now at the statements of intent. Appreciate there's a lot of words on the screen, so it's really just the red updated words we're looking for here. So the statements of intent are the top line headings for each of the 4 SALSA sections. They are auditable and give an overview for each section. So a quick reminding of the wording to support the statements of intent, and the key changes are highlighted in red here. So minor word changes across the 4 statements of intent. Number 1 introduces the word consistently. So consistently producing and handling safe and legal food and drink. In section 2 for HACCP, listing out separately micro, chemical, physical and allergen for hazards. So they're listed out to aid focus in for the hazard analysis and the HACCP risk assessment. For section 3, for documents to be readily accessible. So this is referring to digital systems to be easily to search and to present. And section 4, added clarity for layout, segregation and flow, so that if the factory isn't laid out correctly, we can raise the whole statement of intent, and then adding in the word digital for security.
The SALSA standards have been updated for 2026, so it's likely your next audit will be against a new issue. But don't forget, we're here to support you and help you to prepare. SALSA members have access to exclusive support resources via their membership portal, which includes the updated interpretation guide, a detailed member summary of changes, the glossary and the tools and tips. These will be reviewed and available over summer 2026. Now here's the important thing: whether your next audit is in autumn 26 or not until summer 27, the time to start understanding these changes is now. So don't wait till your audit's around the corner, because the earlier you start, the smoother the transition will be. We're running some drop-in sessions in July, so you can get your questions answered directly by the SALSA team, and you can use a SALSA mentor for expert one-to-one guidance. As a member, you have access to the self-assessment checklist, a document designed as a template for a detailed assessment of how you're complying with the requirements of the SALSA standard and the interpretation guide. You can use it in conjunction with a summary of changes documents as you review and align your systems and practices with the new issue. You can use this document for your internal review, and we'd recommend you complete your review in sections across the year with an annual closeout. The self-assessment can also be used as a gap analysis tool when preparing for your first audit. For issue 7, we also have a new digital self-assessment tool available for members. This tool is accessible from the member area in resources. So you look for the issues auditable from the 1st of September. It provides a practical tool and efficient tracking of internal reviews, with a clause-by-clause layout, with built-in interpretation guide accessible for each requirement. It allows for recording of evidence. You can use this to plan who will do the actions and the due dates. You can bring out an action plan overview with all outstanding actions into a single view. And you can print progress reports for management reviews or team briefings. Completion tracking is available with the ability to start a fresh assessment at any time. It's confidential by design, they're completely private and stored securely in the member portal. SALSA do not check or review your self-assessment. Auditors cannot see the self-assessment unless the member chooses to share it with them. You can use this for clause 3.1.1, your internal review, and you can print a copy available for the auditor. It's a tool designed to support food safety management from within the business. So let's just recap the key dates and support available. The 4 new standards were published on the 1st of June, and all audits from the 1st of September 2026 will be conducted against the new issues. We're running some drop-in sessions in July 2026. And whatever your situation, whether you've been through 10 SALSA audits or are considering joining for the first time, the message is the same: start preparing now and don't do it alone. The resources are there, the support is there, and we're alongside you every step of the way. We look forward to working with you and raising the standards together.